It's the Final Word Daily, brought to you as ever by Westfield London, Westfield Stratford City. I'm back with Vish for the kind of England wash-up episode. We're going to talk about what we've just spoken about with Brendan McCullum, have a look forward to Durham Shalar, which I've been told I've been pronouncing it incorrectly, and the weather's much like Durham, so it's actually going to be very easy to remember and get my brain round it. We've just spoken to Brendan McCullum, kind of with... I felt like the theme kind of got taken over to conversations you have in March and April where you go, are these spinners going to play? Are England going to produce spinners? Because the scenario we're having with those players that are out here at the moment, in Sherb Bashir, he is currently the second choice spinner at Somerset behind England teammate Jack Leach, and Tom Hartley is occasionally the first choice spinner at Lancashire when he's not being picked behind Jack Morley, and Nathan Lyon is going to come into the team. Brendan McCullum's kind of going, well, it'd be a bit mental if they don't get opportunities, and it would be helpful. It would be helpful if they got a game.
Yeah, it's a different slant on the usual spinners piece that ends up being doled out at the end of an India series. It's like, where are the spinners? You know, you play the county championship on Mars because that was
better wickets,
pitch, wasn't it?
Yeah, keeps low on Mars.
But it's different now, isn't it? England have basically, you know, the players are going to return to their counties, and England will be like, by the way, he's now a test spinner.
Yep.
He by the way, and not just a test spinner, he was leading wicket taker in India. And this other lad has the ability to bowl unchained from one end for a whole day. So you've got that now. We're going to come back in a couple of months and pick them back up. Don't ruin them. And it's kind of it's quite neat because I think you kind of, I don't know about you, but I came into this tour dreading having to write that piece. But it's a very different slant, and it comes from a place where, you know, Will McPherson asked Baz this. You know, you picked these players off little first-class experience.
Do they need to play?
And it's kind of like, is it the system? Is it workaround to the system? Whatever it is, we're in a situation where come July, when England start thinking about Test cricket again, they're going to check up on them, and it'll be interesting to see how much they bowl. And would it necessarily be a bad thing or counterproductive if they don't bowl as much? Partly because, you know, I feel like a lot of the conversation is lost in the fact that, I mean, we are in England, and like England only does, you know, the weather only plays ball so much that the pitches are a certain way, which is where, you know, which is the same with wherever you are in the world, as we found out here over the last month.
I thought McCullum gave a very gentle... I thought he was incredibly diplomatic and pragmatic, but there was quite a clear kind of shove in the direction of like, it would be nicer, wouldn't it, if Hartley and Lyon, if a wicket was produced that Hartley and Lyon could bowl together, if Sherb Bashir and Jack Leach could bowl together, kind of...
Josh Bohannon there thinking, what are you on about, mate? Huh?
No, I want to pick... Oh my God, every single seam bowler in the world's disappeared from my brain.
Bailey.
Tom Bailey, thank you very much. Something that was strange as well, or not strange, it shows the direction of travel of this England team, their selection mentality, is that the idea of, is the county championship potentially inhibiting these two guys' kind of development? McCullum was then going, look, we look for skills, and we knew this 6 weeks ago. It's like we look for certain skill sets to suit certain situations, and so in the words of him today, it was like there might be some guys who do very well in the county championship and might not get selected, and there might be guys who do less well who also might not or might get selected, and I think that works fine, and I think that works as a non-rocking the boat mentality and quite an exciting way of going about things. When you're travelling outside of England, it's going to be really bizarre. It's going to be quite a bizarre scenario if you are trying to climb the pecking order to international cricket. If when you're playing cricket in your own country, you're then not deemed to have the skill set to play your own country. But we've had this already. This is why Zach Crawley
he was the first name that came to mind. Yeah,
exactly. And so, yeah, it'll be interesting to know how it play out. The ECB have been quite. Well, McCullum's saying they don't really want to particularly get involved in the idea of like forcing loan moves on these counties. Yeah. Stokes was a bit more clear cut with the BBC yesterday. It was like, we need these guys to get opportunities. I mean, it's a balancing act that I can't think of an equivalent in. It'd be a bit like a Gareth Southgate saying to Pep, like, please can you play Calvin Phillips? Like,
but actually specifically it would be, please can you play Phil Foden in centre midfield?
Yeah.
And or you know, out wide, basically in the position that Guardiola isn't playing him in, and Guardiola having to be subservient, which isn't the case in football,
of course.
But there's an element of that in cricket. I think it is important to point out as well that McCullum said that, you know what, I don't actually know too much about the system, but in a way that like that was posited in a way that so it would be wrong for me to talk about it with any kind of authority, essentially, in terms of the whims of it and what's involved. But fundamentally, it's about creating players for England.
I feel like they say that all the time, but every topic we talk about, they go like, I don't really know the details of that, to be honest. And you're like, oh, okay.
Well, it's a nice change from they used to say this phrase, it's above my pay grade. And you're like, sorry, it's many things. It's definitely not above your pay grade.
I like the idea that McCollum's actually going, this is actually below my pay grade. Yeah. I'm not interested.
Essentially, yeah. I'm sure there's a loser somewhere who deals with that.
And we'll kind of have like a snapshot into the direction of travel England might take with their spinners next week when we go to Dharamshala, because it's going to be a bit more seam-friendly conditions. There are some rumours going about that it's going to get dark at about 1 in the afternoon, and we're not going to actually.
I think Ravi Shastri said that, didn't he?
Yeah, I know, but I didn't know if he'd said it publicly.
No. He said it over a beer, I think. But yeah, I think that was the intimation. But it was one of those things where it's just like the light fades. It's not like pitch blackness, like 40 days a night.
The sunset is 6:20 p.m. and plays scheduled to finish at 4:30, so you should be okay. It reminded me of when we were in Multan last year, the Pakistan series, and there was like smog. We'd get in the morning on day -1, which is just the day before the match. I don't know why we call it that.
It's quite self-explanatory, but go on.
Yeah, there we go. And we looked out and you couldn't see anything. You're like, oh my goodness me, this test match isn't going to start until 11:30. Remember there was talk about like picking an extra seamer, and rather than like going short on the batting.
McCullum got sent a video, and then we got shown that video, and we were like, oh wow! And then I'd love to. We should go back and look at it now because utter bollocks.
All right. I remember saying, a complete tangent, but in the last 12 months or 14 months, if you include Pakistan-New Zealand series, we've had the Islamabad test, which was almost delayed because of food poisoning or because of the virus that went around. We had the debate around Multan about whether that was going to get knocked back or played in shortened thing because of smog. And then in Mount Maunganui, we had the threat of the earthquake that was going to cancel the test. And so,
but even then, if you extend that back to the last test of the home summer, Queen died, didn't she?
That did happen. I just laughed when you said that. It's bad.
Oh, she's dead. It's fine.
Yeah, a bit like I'd like to go on a tangent there. But we're gonna see potentially 3 seamers, 2 spinners. One of those seamers sounds like it's going to be Ben Stokes. The reason McCullum said he didn't bowl in this Test match was because of conditions, as opposed to a fitness issue. That makes life a little bit easier for England, because I think the least controversial selection would be Anderson. Wood comes back in. Basically, Wood comes in for Robinson, and that's the only change from bowling front. You've got a third seamer in
I like that.
Stuart Broad, Ben Stokes. I don't think I'd be surprised if they went 4 and 1. If Stokes said I'm not going to bowl, and then you're looking at a debate of Ollie Robinson or Gus Atkinson as the third seamer. I don't think that's going to happen. And more to the point, Ollie Robinson had a very bad Test match, and I think that's coming out of the weeds a little bit more now. McCullum was very, again, diplomatic with it, but it was one of those things where I felt like in the room he was being a bit sterner than the quotes then read. The quotes actually read kind of very fake. It's like, oh, look, we want to put this behind us, and Ollie's very disappointed, X, Y, Z. But I personally don't think I'd ever heard McCullum speak about a player like that, where you go, oh, we're all disappointed, basically, because the whole mantra of this team is to be so up and about. Ollie Pope's pair just gets brushed away, which it should do, because these things happen. But Bairstow's bad run of form. Oh, we don't want to put negative thoughts in these guys' minds. And then for the first,
and Bairstow weirdly actually had pretty decent tests with the bat. Apart from the dismissal. I mean, we've kind of went through it. It's been, we've gone through it with the wash up of that test. But yeah, sorry, go on.
Yeah. Also, like the nature of the dismissal, batting is ultimately a zero-sum game. Like, if you get out, that is, you have one life, and if you get out poorly and it's deemed to be wasted, then it seems like a wasted opportunity. So that will hang over Bairstow in that respect. But yeah, Ollie, I think actually the phrase I'd use for McCullum's way he spoke about Robinson was, it sounded like a more like stereotypical press conference. I felt like I was in a more kind of conventional one where you're seeing just the generic quotes being rolled out, which I'm not used to with McCullum, because normally it's be where your feet are, look at the blue sky rather than the grey. If Robinson is out of the next test in terms of a tactical selection, I cannot see a world where he'd play ahead of Mark Wood on form. Does he then fall away? Where does he sit in the pecking order of English seamers now? Because Chris Woakes will come back in the summer. Surely Chris Woakes is still ahead of him in that respect.
There's I suppose it depends how he's going with his shoulder, I think it is, but there's Josh Tongue as well
Oh yeah.
to come back into that conversation. Yeah, it's fascinating. I feel like this is just another thing. If you look at let me start that from the beginning in terms of like making my point here. But like, if you look at Robinson's Test career, full stop, it has been a series of stops and starts, and stops for very, very unconventional reasons. Yeah.
Sorry, I realised we missed out a really important detail
Go
here.
on.
He twinged his back whilst
He did twinge his
batting,
back while batting,
and so
which-
that
yeah.
was meant to be, that was a contributing factor to why his pace was so far down in that match, and why McCullum was saying he was then pushing the front line because he was trying to eke out as much pace
Yeah.
as possible. Sorry, continue.
But there's it's been stop-start for very unconventional reasons. You know, it starts with those historic offensive tweets. It then goes into the Ashes, where he backs away. He's ridiculed for bowling off spin in his sunglasses. There's that one bloke who always goes on about it. Mad. But then, then he kind of like, Stokes tells him basically that he's going to play in the first Test series under him in 2022. He doesn't. Then Stokes basically lays it on a plate for him and says, "Look, you just need to get fitter. This is all that's stopping you from getting there." Gets fitter. He has a great thing in Pakistan. He comes into the Ashes with the 2023 Ashes with an injury, and then doesn't quite do himself justice. Says a few things. Doesn't play for the rest of the year. Comes in here having looked pretty tidy in the nets, and then probably in the most on-field way lets them down in some capacity.
Yeah.
And obviously the back issue was a thing. He took a tablet during the innings, which presumably during his batting innings, which presumably was related to that. But you're kind of now in a situation where like, okay, well this is another bump now. And the thing about the previous ones is that you'd always kind of throw forward to that press conference 2 days ahead of a test where he does it, and you're talking about the things that he's done to come back and how he's earned back the trust and this, that, and the other. This is the harder one to look forward to, to throw forward to, because you're like, okay, where is that? When is that? Because we know he's good. Like, you don't get those numbers. You don't average 22 and have 70 odd wickets in however many tests he's done it in without being good. And it really is as simple as that. And I suppose it's just about finding out where getting back those 7 miles an hour, essentially.
Yeah, I think the difficult thing that's facing him now is over the past 2 years, since he basically made his debut and was phenomenal at home conditions and then away in Pakistan, when you got back to, it's the throwing forward thing you mentioned, when you got back to the UK, it was him. Like, it was, has anyone done enough to overtake Ollie Robinson and to take away his kind of assumed place in the side? And now, I don't think that place exists anymore, because he had the disappointing start to the Ashes series. Wood and Wokes came in, as Mark Wood joked at the time, hey, it's 2-0 with me and Chris in the team, basically.
Yeah.
He spends all this time away. The whole narrative is that, and narrative makes it sound like it's a kind of almost fictional, but the fact of the matter is he's arrived here, he's fitter, he looks better, X, Y, Z. Oh, in the nets he's been bowling quick and he's been bowling well, and this surf is really going to suit him, and it's the high release point. And then it was just kind of so overwhelmingly disappointing. I find it so rare when you watch elite sport, when you notice someone on a pitch is operating at a slightly different level to the rest. Like, even if you watch Federer like wipe the floor of someone 6-4, 6-4, 6-4, if you just didn't tell me who was the best player of all time and who wasn't, I'd be like, I can't really tell. They kind of look similar to my untrained eye. Jimmy Anderson never looks slow in a test match.
Yeah.
You never see a ball, like if someone's bowling 82, 83 miles an hour, you don't go, cool, that's slow. Ollie Robinson was releasing a couple of deliveries and you're like, that is noticeably a different kind of level of the game. And that kind of, that was proved in when he did have that good little spell against Jaiswal and nicked him off. The ball didn't reach the wicketkeeper.
Yeah. It's you kind of wonder where. Yeah, it feels like bowlers aren't ever 100% fit.
Yeah,
but you kind of hope that whatever percentage is taken out of you is from a place where it's maybe a bit of wear and tear, but tiredness, but it's not afflicting the areas that you need to bowl.
Yeah.
And evidently it does with Robbo, with his back. Quite an important part of bowling is your back.
Yeah.
And also backs are really big, and he's quite tall, he's got a big back.
I think I'm really surprised at the fact this has even become a topic of conversation. Like we've just
Well, it's because essentially the outside narrative is that England were hoodwinked into picking him, when that isn't quite the case, is it? Because Stokes isn't the type of person to pick someone out of seniority or be. He talks about loyalty, but it's earned loyalty, yeah.
yeah.
And so there is. I think there's a notion that like, oh, they got it so wrong with the selection because they picked Robinson, and why have they picked Robinson? Well, they picked Robinson because he has been looking good over the last month, and there was almost a kind of pre-planned thing of right, prime yourself for the last 3 tests of the series after that break, because that's when we're going to need you.
Yeah.
And it really just hasn't worked out. But essentially, he bowled like a man who hasn't played a competitive game, who hasn't bowled a competitive over in 9 months.
On that last bit on it, I find it interesting because athletes kind of split on this. There's a kind of quite a large body of like research which says that rather than it being a case that players are rusty when they come back in after time away, they're actually better because they're in a better physical condition than they would have been in the kind of matches. So I know Robinson said in the past he wants over, so that doesn't quite apply to him. But I think what's just so disappointing is it should have been like a plug and play selection. It should have been we have a banker on the sidelines that come in, then it was let down. That didn't happen. And I think if you're England, and this is complete hypothetical, this is me just imagining as opposed to knowing anything. You'd be frustrated, you'd be annoyed, you'd be like, how has this happened? Like,
well, I mean, plug and play is a great way of putting it because every time a player has come in, they have been plug and play.
Yeah.
If you consider Shoaib Bashir, Jimmy Anderson in the second test, Mark Wood in the third, and then Shoaib Bashir back in again for this fourth test, they've all been plug and play. They've actually nailed all that. They maybe didn't get the right team balance in Vizag when they lost that second test, but by and large, everyone they've brought in has been sound and solid, and well, better than solid really. And the gap between what they've done and what Ollie Robinson's done is, as you said before, quite stark.
Alas, right, but things we do have lined up for next test. We've got confirmed that Jimmy Anderson will be fit. In effect, that's the kind of what I took away from that. He had a bit of a quad strain, which is why he didn't take the field for the final session of the test match. Johnny Bairstow is going to play his 100th match. They're not going to rotate and just bring in kind of Atkinson and Lawrence for the sake of it. Anything else from you on the old Vizag wash up? Where are we? Ranchi. So long ago.
We are Ranchi, aren't we?
Lost the series.
Yeah, Ranchi, yeah.
Correct. I think that's everything from us today. If you have any other questions, any other comments, please let us know. Thank you for listening. We'll be back tomorrow. When will we be back?
I don't know. You tell me. You're the one who's running this.
I know. We've got a week off now. Me and Vish are going to Mumbai and then to Dharmashala.
If you want to get on it in Mumbai on Thursday, let us know. Yeah.
Please do let us know in that respect. It's, as ever, brought to you by Westfield London, Westfield Stratford City. More extra, less ordinary. Adam and Barrett, I reckon, are going to have a next show for you. But there's so much going into the Final Word feed. I'm sure there'll be lots for your ears to enjoy. See you then.